Leading remotely. Are we over-meetinged and under-communicating? Many of us are still working remotely. Some of us are deciding whether working from home part-time is a really positive option. Is it good for us? It may be good for the traffic control out there on the roads, and the flexibility is really nice. But what about the challenges of doing this long term? Personally, I am in week 15 of working remotely. What is the impact? This is where I ask, are we over-accessed? Because we are sitting at our screens, how many more meetings are you having? Are you too accessible? If you don't respond to an online request in a moment or two, are you messaged to ask why? Are you jumping from one screen interaction to the next? Are these meetings all necessary or simply a convenience? And would this happen if you were working in the workplace? Is it time to revisit Patrick Lencioni's Death by Meeting? Are we meeting because we can? Do our meetings have a purpose and timeframes, and are they scheduled? What happened to those times out of the office, when you were walking the building or driving to work, when you couldn't jump into a meeting? Are these inefficiencies and time wasters, or are they important spaces for thinking and interactions? Our colleagues, our teams are accessible, so do we fall into the trap of actually over-consulting? And are decisions really being made? How many times do we share and discuss at the drop of a hat only to reschedule a follow-up meeting later to go through it all again? Are we actually discussing deeply and valuing the thinking of others? Are we truly able to interact and communicate our needs? Could we simply send a message and get stuff done? In the workplace, would you have the time to come back a day or two later and meet with all those people? Would you take longer to discuss and then come to a decision because it is more difficult to reconvene? Would the admin tasks that are going back and forth and being consulted about multiple times just be discussed and done? Are we really more efficient? Are we overcompensating and thinking we're having to communicate more? And are we really communicating? Face-to-face in the workplace is as much about relationships and connections as it is about getting the work done in tasks. Reputations are built as much on interaction and that feeling of being understood as it is about doing a great job and achieving excellence. How many times do you go back to a business or not because of the way you were dealt with? How many times have you stayed in a job or a house because of the people in the neighbourhood or the people you work with? How good is your communication, really, in working online? How are your decisions interpreted? Do people read more into the decisions or the actions? Do they understand them more or less? Are we communicating in a way that really reaches our team? When something is misinterpreted or a team member doesn't understand, remotely it is so much harder to work it out. We don't see the body language, we don't see the ongoing contact, and we may miss a pullback in messaging. Screens can be turned off in meetings. Introverts and extroverts alike need and want connection, albeit perhaps in different ways. A few years ago, I undertook some research and conducted a work over time study. This analysed how school leaders spent their day and how they managed their time over a 3-day period. The outcome, 70% of their time was spent interacting with people, consulting, discussing, problem-solving, troubleshooting, formal and informal interactions. They could be more efficient if they didn't interact with people. And much of the admin work wasn't prioritised into the day. Leaders do need to revisit how they work and schedule time out from people to ensure those thinking and administrative tasks are done. But if you forewent the 70%, what would the impact be? Do you schedule inaccessible times when you are working from home, as you would in the workplace? And what is the impact of not having these interactions? Are we overcompensating by meeting too often online? The impact of that 70% is all about that sense of belonging, the hidden culture of the workplace, your integrity as a leader. It is the series of those incidental conversations that happen that keeps the culture and the community of the workplace. It is what keeps connections, connectedness, belonging, and that sense of team. Those conversations at the water cooler about the weekend, about family, the coffee and the compliments about the new haircut. These interactions and recognitions are essential. When your staff know that you know them, the impact is dynamic. They know you understand them beyond their work. These relationships and acknowledgements are critical. Yet, so many leaders undervalue these. And how do we do that when we are working remotely? How do you pick up on those teachers and that need, or your people in your workplace? Conversely, if you have a negative culture in the workplace, working from home for many is a great reprieve and offers respite from quite a toxic environment. Working from home certainly has its bonuses. I acknowledge that. But is it all positive? Is it all good? What are we missing? And then, are we doing it well, with focus, with purpose?